final page kit from the Build-A-Page series last week. So I put 5 kits together and then I just worked my way through them all week with the other ladies who participate. It's also May I Scraplift You month, and so each of those layouts were put together as a scrap lift of one of the ladies in the series. There just happens to be 6 of us, so there were 5 ladies to choose, and that works out perfect every time. So this scrap lift is of Kristen's, and she just happens to be day 30 on the master May I Scraplift You list as well. So good timing that this is going up today. It's her day. So you can find the master playlist down below if you want to follow along with May I Scraplift You. Click on that playlist and it just takes you through all of the videos from day 1 right until today, and of course tomorrow as well. And so you'll see that a lot of people don't necessarily follow the list that was put together. This is one of those series where you are welcome to kind of do whatever you want to do and scrap lift who inspires you the most. But the suggested list is kind of fun. Crystal goes ahead and puts that together and tries to pick new people each time. And so it's kind of fun because it opens you up to finding new creative people, new channels to follow, all that kind of stuff. So lots of fun. It's always really interesting when you see everybody kind of scrap lifting the same person, but always picking different layouts. And so, it's interesting to see where all the inspiration comes from and that kind of thing. But yeah, go ahead and click on that playlist and you can follow along. Definitely play along if you want to. I love scrap lifting. I'll leave the links for the Build-A-Page ladies too down below, and absolutely links for SpiegelMom scraps, as well as my design team discount code. That way, if you want to head into the shop and save a little bit of money and get yourself some pretty glittery things, you can definitely do that. So check out the description list down below, and yeah, that's where all that information will be. So I went through Kristen's layouts. Again, how do you pick just one? I don't know. I always end up, if it's somebody I've never scrap lifted before, I usually end up making myself a little album where I save every layout essentially that they've ever made, so that I can go back and scrap lift them. But what I kind of used as my guidelines for this particular week, knowing that I had page kits that were already put together, I just sort of went with what the page kits kind of, led towards, if that makes sense. So as I was looking through the layouts, I was kind of trying to think what papers were in my page kits, how many embellishments, that type of thing. And so I really liked this layout that I chose of Kristen's because it got lots of patterns and, there was lots of potential for embellishments and stuff like that, but the pattern, or should I say the patterned papers, were smaller. So I was kind of looking for that because I knew I had one large pattern paper, one 12 by 12 pattern paper, the background paper, that is Later Skater from Close to My Heart. And then the other pattern papers I put in this kit were 6 by 8. And so I was kind of looking for a layout where either the papers were cut up, or I could see that maybe she had used a 6 by 6 or 6 by 8, something along those lines. So that sort of helped to guide me a little bit as to what layout I was going to scrap lift. And then, of course, I just saved a whole bunch of other ones because I will get back to them all. And so that is the general design that you see here. What I decided to do is, instead of doing a diamond shape with my smaller papers, I actually kept it as a square. And because these papers were not quite lining up, they're not quite a true 6 by 8. And so when I was cutting them, they didn't kind of line up properly. But I was totally okay with that. I just kept it as a square. You saw me kind of fiddling around a little bit. I had cut one of those triangles, or I guess 2 of those triangles, into even smaller triangles because I was trying to kill the papers and see if I could get pattern on top of pattern and try to build something that way and just really use up all of the paper. But I realized once I put my photo on there, I think my photo's a little bit bigger than the one that Kristen used. And so once I kind of put my picture on there and got a bunch of the embellishments on there, there wasn't a lot of room and you really weren't seeing a lot of the patterns. And so it just sort of seemed like a bit of a waste of the paper. Not that I don't appreciate the process and, kind of going through the motions of creating. I say that all the time, but in this particular case, I just felt like there might be a more strategic way to use those papers and get some more pattern into it that it wasn't completely covered up. So I kept it as a square, which meant I could go ahead and kind of follow the lines in that background paper and get everything lined up. And then instead of embellishing each triangle, kind of within each triangle, I picked to sort of embellish along the diagonal lines. And that just helped to cover up any of those places where the papers weren't quite matching. And, it just gave my own kind of personal take on Kristen's layout. So, it was so much fun. I loved putting this together. I love these types of layouts where you kind of have your base put together and then you just get to fiddle around with all of the embellishments and tuck them in and see where they can go. And yeah, I just find that so much fun. So once I got that main page kind of done, I got all the embellishments put in place. Then I decided here's where I can find a way to maybe use up these smaller triangles and get just a little bit more pattern in there and also be able to say that I really killed this kit and used up as much of these papers as possible. So I folded down these corners, each corner, and thought I would go ahead and pop the smaller triangles into those corners. So now you kind of have that little peekaboo effect with those corners. And I think it turned out really good. And again, it just gives, sort of my own personal take on this design. And I think it's kind of fun and a little bit more whimsical. And it just happens to work out because the back of the paper, the back of the background paper kind of works and doesn't take away too much or doesn't have a pattern that might be upside down. Sometimes when you try to do that type of technique where you're flipping the paper, you might end up that the back doesn't really work out for you. And then it can become a bit of an obstacle trying to cover that up and, all that fun stuff that we do. And so it just happened to work out. So I thought I'm going to go ahead and do it. And so once all of that was put together, then I get to go to my favorite part, which is the finishing touches and add in my sequins. So I'm starting off with the Winter Charms sequins mix, because the blue that is in this sequins mix is just so stunning. It is my favorite shade of blue. It really matches the cocoa vanilla papers really well. It's that deep, dark navy blue. It's just really, really gorgeous. So I'm picking out just the blue from that collection or from that sequins mix, as well as the little white stars. Those are going to kind of make their way on there too, just because stars are the motif that I have going here. And then the other sequins mix that you just saw me use there is an exclusive mix that was actually created by Jody for Wild Whisper. It's I think Sea of Teal. And that teal is a perfect match for the teal that is in the background paper. So that worked out really good. And that mix is just all teal, but different sizes and shapes and styles of sequins. So I got those all down, let them dry a little bit. And now just to keep going with that kind of fun, I wanted to add something that was a little bit different. So I'm going to make these little corner shaker pockets and just put a little bit of the tumbleweed mix in there. The tumbleweed mix is, I don't know, it was like it was meant for this No Limits collection. It's got different shades of kind of the teals and the greens, and it's got some orange, and it's just perfect, the perfect mix. But I thought that if I just put it on the papers, kind of just glued it on the papers, it might get a little bit lost because it sort of fades into all of those colors. Like it's that good of a match for those papers that I felt like the colors themselves might get a little bit lost. So I decided to go ahead and put these little shaker pockets onto the two corners where I put the navy blue paper, and now they really stand out and you can really see how well this collection or this mix actually matches to that No Limits collection. So I went through my stash, found two little baggies. I'm totally okay cutting the baggies, so it's okay. We'll make it through. I know a lot of people, when I cut things like this up, I always get a message from somebody going, I can't believe you did that. It's totally okay. There are limitless amounts of baggies in my stash because I get lots of sequins and lots of little embellishments and stuff like that. Often those baggies get recycled for me into smushing plastic, right? Just like packaging. You can use those baggies to do the smushing technique. And so I can still use the leftover piece of these baggies to do that smushing technique. But by creating these little pockets using the corner of the baggie, it just saves me a lot of time from having to try to go get my fuse tool out and, fuse these all together. I just had to seal the bottom with some of that amazing tape, that two-sided tape in the really, really thin width. That's also in the SpiegelMom Scrap store, but it just saved me so much time. So look how super cute these are. They worked out so well. There's a close-up of the tumbleweed sequins mix. Run to the store, go and grab it. It's absolutely stunning. And that is my layout. Thank you so, so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember all those links down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will be back again soon. So until next time, happy scrapping. Bye.
Bye. Thanks. Give me to what button? Tell my channel.